Please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Welcome to IEDC's first ever Ed Talks. Please welcome our Masters of Ceremony, Andy Levine from DCI.
So welcome to Ed Talks, everyone. This is a first for IEDC. We're making a little bit of history here. I'm Andy Levine. I'm president of DCI. I'm also an IEDC board member, and we're delighted to have such a full crowd here today. Let me talk to you a little about our process. So we came up with this idea about a year ago, and we obviously are modeling this after TED Talks. And we created a committee of 4 people, and we put out a call for submissions in, I think it was in February. And we got 48 submissions for 4 slots. A lot of people. You see here the committee. Clarence Hulse was the chair of the committee, Kenny McDonald, Lauren Millier, myself. If there's anyone here who is not selected among those 48, you're welcome to talk to any of those 3 people about it. I also want to give a shout out, a little bit of love, to Marie Pliszka from IEDC, who basically organized a lot of this, did a lot of the work. Can you give her a round of applause? So 48 submissions. We have a pretty full room here today. Really, everyone is talking about Ed Talks. It's the buzz of the conference. It's the buzz of some of our public leaders, in fact. So this is kind of cool. Donald Trump tweeting about it. Wish I was here. You'll see he did this at 4:05 in the morning, which is when he tweets, obviously. Not to be outdone, Prime Minister Trudeau. Same thing. Apparently, he's a little busy taking care of HQ2, like the rest of you here, and Amazon. So there's a lot of buzz about it, and we're excited to be trying a little bit of a new format today. To be just serious for a moment, I can't say enough about the 4 speakers you're going to hear from today. They have developed 4 outstanding presentations. They've rehearsed. We rehearsed them about a month ago by GoToMeeting, and we did it last night together in terms of getting ready for this, and they've just put a lot of effort into this. So I have 2 requests of the audience today. Number 1, if you can give them your full attention when they're speaking. And you know what I'm talking about. I know it's going to be hard to put away your phone for an hour, but if you can put away your phone, give them your full attention, I think we'd really appreciate it. The second part is they really have worked their hearts out to prepare for this. If you don't mind showing your full appreciation after they give you their talk, it's only about 15 minutes for each of them, and I think we'd really appreciate that. So I have a question for you. How many have actually been to a TED Talk before? Just raise your hands for me if you would. Okay, so maybe about 1/3 of the audience. So you know with a TED Talk, usually there's music involved. Now, I've been going to IEDC conferences for a long, long time. I've never seen music before in a general session. So I'm very pleased to say that we have a local artist today, Aaron Salomon, who'll come up. And let's see, what can I say about Aaron? He plays 8 different instruments, 8 instruments, including guitar, which is good since that's what he's playing today. He's a very talented musician. He's going to play for you an opening song. We'll then hear from 2 of our speakers, and then he's going to come back, play a second song, and then we'll hear from our final 2 speakers. So a little bit of innovation in terms of introducing some music into a general session. So please give a warm welcome to Aaron Salomon.
Thank you. This first song I'm going to do is a song by the songwriter Ralph Mctell. And Ralph Mctell, an English singer-songwriter, happened to be in Paris back in the 60s. And he noticed the disparity of the people living on the streets and started to write a song about the streets of Paris and the people that he saw there. And then he considered it farther, and he thought, you know, really every city has people like this. So then he started to rework it about his own hometown of London, because that's the city that he knew the best. So the song is by Ralph Mctell. It's called The Streets of London. And it's a story song, so you need to kind of listen to the words on this one. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. Have you seen the old man in the closed down market, kicking up the papers with his worn out shoes? In his eyes you see no pride, and held loosely by his side are yesterday's papers telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. In the all-night cafe at 11:15, the same old man sitting there on his own, looking at the world over the rim of his teacup. Each tea lasts an hour, and then he wanders home alone. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. And have you seen the old girl who walks the streets of London with the dirt in her hair and her clothes in rags? She's no time for talking, she just keeps right on walking, carrying her home in 2 carrier bags. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. Have you seen the old man outside the seaman's mission, with his memory fading like the metal ribbons that he wears? In our winter city, the rain cries a little pity for one more forgotten hero in a world that doesn't care. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. So how can you tell me that you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. I'll show you something that'll make you change your mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aaron. That is one of my favorite songs, and as we have a conference here that talks about economic inclusion. I think it's just a very appropriate choice, so thank you very much, Aaron. You will be back for a second song, which allow you to test your vocal cords as well, so give you a little hint at what's to come. So we're at the main event here. I want to introduce to you our first speaker. Christopher Lloyd is the Senior Vice President at Mcguire Woods Consulting out of Richmond, Virginia. He is going to be talking to us about winning the war against economic development and incentives. Please give a warm welcome to Christopher Lloyd.
Thanks, Andy, and it's a real pleasure to be with you all here at the IEDC here in Toronto this afternoon. Really excited to talk a little bit about this topic because I think it's very relevant to all of us in the room, whether you're a site selector like me, whether you're an economic development professional, whether you're a service provider. Our industry is changing, and it's getting ready to change radically. And there are a lot of forces at play that are driving that change, and I want to walk through some of those forces that are at play, what's causing some of those forces to be in play, and what we as the economic development profession can do about it. You know, in economic development, certainly in the past 10 years, I've been in economic development now 25 years, and I think we have started to see a great deal of change in economic development with regards to the type of projects we're seeing. And it really is the rise of the disruptors. It's these companies that didn't even exist 5 to 10 years ago that are now driving economic development projects, that are driving the way that business is done around the country, around the world, that's changing things radically. So we're dealing with very different companies from what we used to deal with just even a few years ago. We're also seeing a great deal of change with regards to what's happening within the facilities we work on. Facilities are being automated. Capital investment is surging, whereas the number of jobs, which is a metric that most of us are measured on, are declining rapidly. And it's changing the nature of economic development projects. This disruption because of artificial intelligence and robotics, it's changing things very radically. And you may think, well, what does this have to do with us as economic developers? Guess what, folks? We're next for disruption. We're next in line. And you may think about it for a minute. You may think, oh, I'm a human, ain't no robot going to take my job. I'm going to be just fine. Think about how the profession has changed in the past 10 years. Walk out in the exhibit hall and look at the service providers out there. And there's nothing against them. But for those of you who've been in economic development for a while, your first job, you started out as doing research. Guess what? They can push a button right now, and that research job is gone. For those of you who've done workforce training as part of your job, guess what? That's being radically transformed by technology. It's all going online now. So think about it. Already, there are these forces at play that are starting to disrupt what you do as economic developers. And it's coming, and it's building, and it's changing. Part of the problem we have, and why I think we're so ripe for disruption as economic developers, is that very few people understand what we as economic developers do. I don't know about y'all, I never get invited to career day at my kids' school. It's not like I have a cool job. I'm not a fireman or a NASCAR driver or a truck driver. My kids still don't know what I do. I've been married 15 years. My wife doesn't know what I do. She knows I pay the Target bill every month, which is very, very important. But she doesn't understand what we do. And part of that is because most people don't understand who economic developers are. And let's be honest, very few of us ever set out to become economic developers. Gil's going to tell a great story about his start as a taco vendor. How many of you, very few of you, graduated from college saying, I'm going to go into economic development? The reason you didn't is because you didn't know what economic development was. And that's because we're somewhat of a hidden profession. And so those people that are exposed to it really don't understand what economic development is. And those that do have just an inkling of understanding what economic development is think it's all you're doing is going around having steak dinners and wining and dining people. My wife calls it the scallops wrapped in bacon circuit. That's what she thinks that I do, is I go fly all over the place, stay in beautiful hotels, and then wine and dine, and I get paid well for it. And that's a perception of economic development. Some people think that what we're doing is we're just paving over wetlands, that we're out there to destroy the environment. And other people, we might as well be just clubbing baby seals. You know, they think that badly of economic development. They just don't know what we do. And that's a problem. And again, that makes us ripe for disruption. But there's also strong political forces at play that don't like economic development. This is a photo that was in the Wall Street Journal a couple of weeks ago. It was a photo of the crowd after the passage of the new Seattle millionaires tax. Now, as those of you from Washington State know, Washington does not have an income tax, but Seattle has decided to impose a special tax on income in Seattle in order to fund social welfare programs. Those ladies in that aisle are right out of central casting from the loony left. And just think about it for a moment. These people are cheering at an initiative that will probably cost jobs in Seattle. In fact, I'm not yet unconvinced, or I actually think that part of the reason why Amazon's in play is because of actions like this. In corporate welfare, the 1%, the establishment. Guess what, folks? You're the face of the establishment. You're the face of the 1%. Your citizens who are upset about the 1% and the privileges enjoyed by the establishment, they can't walk in the CEO's office and yell and scream at them, but they can come at you. You are the person that they are upset at. But it's not just these national trends that the Republican and the Democratic Party, who have both seen, whether it's corporate welfare, picking winners and losers, what the Republicans say, or economic development stands in the way of social justice and money that should be used to fund social programs going for economic development. It even comes to the local level, where people are saying stop industrial development because we want to preserve open space or preserve history or preserve something that's special. This is not just a phenomenon in the United States, though. It has gotten to epic proportions here in Canada. This country, from a Canadian perspective, is tearing itself apart. I mean, it's near riots when you see some of the photos of what's going on here in Canada. I mean, it's really, really bad. From a Canadian perspective, that's a riot, folks. It's really, really getting bad. And we are in the crosshairs of these forces that are taking over and impacting what we do in economic development. But some of the problem is the media hypes it up. Some of the problem is ourselves. I'm somewhat of an economic development nerd. I collect these headlines of what's going on around the country with regards to incentives and economic development. And these are a few of my favorites. The first one is truly my favorite, because if anyone can spot cronyism from a mile away, it's an official from Illinois. And the second one, it was actually my hometown newspaper, Incentives, PBS versus GE. That ran the week that Virginia granted a $300,000 grant to GE for a new customer call center, the same week that the state cut funding, $2 million worth of funding for public television. The third one, Florida Grants, gives program $423,000 incentive to a cocaine dealer. Obviously a scandal, particularly in Florida, because the average coke dealer in Florida gets at least $1 million. So this guy was really upset. And so when people see these headlines, they get wound up. They think that what we're doing is secretive, that we're doing something that's underhanded, and they get upset and they have a reaction to it. But for a moment, let's think about what's really going on. Think about, for a moment, the seminal moments of American history. 1936, FDR is running for his second term as president. What's the song they play when he walks in the convention hall? Happy days are here again. The economy is starting to turn. The Great Recession is receding. It was a message about economic hope and prosperity. Fast forward, 1984, Ronald Reagan. What was the ad that was run? It's morning in America again. And Ronald Reagan was able to affirmatively answer yes to the question he posed in the 1980 debate of, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Obviously, the Reagan Revolution was starting to turn around the American economy. Bill Clinton. No, I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky. Actually, that's the wrong speech. It was actually 1992, and you look at the campaign, James Carville, his political aide that year, what was the theme? It's the economy, stupid. Getting people focused on what matters to you personally, jobs, the economy, growth. It's not about foreign relations. It's not about that we just had the Berlin Wall fall. It's not about that we just survived the invasion of Kuwait by Iraq. We don't care about those foreign issues. It's the economy, stupid. And then again, this race. Need I say more? A focus very significantly on job creation and economic prosperity. And the reason these political leaders are focused on this is because one of the primal fears of any human being is this: being unemployed, having an insecure future, not knowing what the future is going to be for your children and whether you're going to provide a higher standard of living for your children than what you had. And so what we as economic developers need to do is we need to capture this energy and channel it to move us forward. And when you look at polling data, this is a poll that was taken right before the parliamentary elections here in Canada in 2015, and people were asked, what's the #1 issue they care about? As you see, economy is the #1 issue that was polling in 2015. Gallup does a similar kind of poll weekly in the United States, asking people what do they care about and what's the top concern. And while you see some percentage change over time, and certainly it mirrors the economic cycle, still at 21%, jobs in the economy is the #1 issue that people in America care about. It's not health care. It's not immigration. It's not the environment. Although when you link environment and economy, it's something you're going to hear talked about later in the presentation by Brian, there is some correlation there. But it's the economy and jobs is what people care about, and they're motivated about. And there is a silent majority out there that if you can convince them that you are linked to economic growth, you're linked to job creation, and you're linked to better prosperity, they're going to be your ally. And it's up to us to tap that energy and use it for our benefit. To drive the point home a little bit more, National League of Cities did a survey of all the mayor's speeches, their State of the City speeches, of what was the key word that was in every one of those speeches. And 4 years in a row, people aren't talking about crime, they're not talking about transportation. Economic development is the #1 issue, 4 years running in all of these municipal elections. So it's not just national leaders, it's local leaders as well. Economic development matters to people. It motivates them to action. And again, we need to seize upon that. And again, it's not just a North American phenomenon. Whether you're Prime Minister Merkel in Germany, whether you're Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in Japan, whether you're Prime Minister May in the UK, whether you're President Macron in France, or you're Prime Minister Trudeau, jobs and the economy is the #1 issue that people care about around the world. And there's probably one notable exception. I don't think this guy cares a whole lot about jobs and the economy. But, you know, for most of the civilized world, that's what most matters to people when they are what they expect out of their government. So you think, well, maybe, okay, I get the jobs and the economy are important. Maybe it's this incentive stuff, these corporate giveaways that really scare people. There's a little bit of polling out there with regards to people's feelings on incentives. This was done by the Tampa Bay Times and Channel 9 a couple of years ago before the recent unpleasantness in Florida, and I mean that by the legislative session that Florida had, which was very controversial with regards to economic development funding. But 2013 was also a very, 2013, 2014 was also a very contentious time with economic development in Florida. 66%, this is a scientifically conducted poll, support incentives. You probably can't get, my wife's from Florida, my in-laws are from Florida, so I can say this. 66% of Floridians probably don't even believe we landed on the moon. And the idea that you can get 66% of people to say they support economic incentives to attract businesses to move here, notice the key words there. People link these incentives and economic development spending with prosperity and job creation. This poll was just released a couple weeks ago in my home state of Virginia that was done regarding people's views regarding economic development incentives. Again, overwhelming support for economic development and economic development spending. Now that doesn't mean, though, that the people, the silent majority that I'm talking about, are going to give you a blank check. Because when you twist the question a little bit and you ask, well, what about if companies are given money and they don't perform? The public opinion moves very, very quickly. They're not giving you a blank check. They want accountability, they want transparency, they want results. So again, it doesn't mean that you have a blank check, that this wellspring of support that you have behind you that you may not think you have, but really is there, it can turn very, very quickly if people suspect that bad things are happening. But again, you've got the people behind you. But what does that mean for those of us in the economic development profession? It means if we're going to make sure we are not disrupted, we need to change. And in order to change, we need to do a lot less of this. And for those of you who millennials in the room, I'll explain what this is. There was a show in the 1960s called Get Smart, and whenever he was a secret agent, whenever he talked to his boss, he went under the cone of silence. Now, some of you may have heard of that term. All these hushed discussions, secrecy, confidentiality, we need to move beyond that and instead move towards more engagement of our community. We need to show up at city council meetings. We need to talk to the public. We need to let them understand and help them understand that what we're doing is positive and moving the community forward, and that we as economic development professionals are the agents of that positive change. We need to do a lot less of this, focusing on the big shovel and the groundbreaking and the wonderful announcements that we're doing, and instead getting involved at the grassroots and going to those transportation planning meetings and going to zoning meetings and going to planning sessions and really getting involved and being a positive force and, for the community and helping people understand the role of economic development and what that means for their prosperity. It means as professionals we've got to do a lot less of this and cutting ribbons and having grand opening ceremonies. And instead, we need to do a lot more of this: written incentive policies, getting a process where people are bought into what we're doing and creating parameters around incentives and creating that accountability and creating that transparency so people understand what we do as economic developers and that we are held to a standard of professionalism that people have bought into. And we need to do a lot less of this: smoke-filled rooms, quiet conversations, with people being very suspicious that we're a bunch of just conniving with fat cats, and instead we need to be talking about return on investment. And we need to talk about how economic development spending and what we do is a net benefit to the community. That if people want good schools, economic development is important. If people want a safe community, economic development is important. If they want recreational assets, economic development is important. And that return on investment is what, that investments in economic development have that positive return that allows for a community to go forward. Because if we don't, folks, it's going to be like the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. The asteroid is coming at us. We're about to be disrupted. And if we don't change, we're going to have the same fate as the dinosaurs. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Awesome. All right, I'm pretty sure that's the first time the cone of silence and clubbing baby seals has been in the same presentation. So thank you for bringing back Get Smart, one of my favorite shows growing up. So we're going to move on to our second speaker, Ashley Cangelosi Llewellyn. She is the Development Director of the St. Tammany Economic Development Foundation. She is our youngest speaker here. I won't tell you her age, 31 years old. But anyway, her topic is Find the Doers, Expanding Workforce Capacity Through Coalition. Please welcome Ashley.
Thank you guys so much for letting me join you all today. And thanks for the opportunity for letting a millennial like myself take a stage in a room of experts and share a little bit about what I've learned. Now, I've only been in the field a few years, but I hope that my experiences will resonate with each of you just as much as I enjoy learning from each of you in other sessions throughout the conference. For many years, our job as economic developers has been to decrease the rate of unemployment. We've done this in a few ways: expanding businesses, growing jobs, and creating a quality of life that our residents can really enjoy and an opportunity for themselves, their careers, and their families to thrive. In 2010, when I was working towards my master's degree in economic development, the unemployment rate in the United States had reached 10%, the highest in almost 25 years. At the same time, the Canadian unemployment rate peaked at 8.8%. Now let's flash forward to today. The Canadian unemployment rate is holding steady at about 6.3%. And last month, the United States reported an unemployment rate of 4.4%. You guys, we are doing exceptional work in each of our communities. But with this exceptional work, with businesses continuing to expand, I know a certain headquarter relocation has been mentioned 1 or a million times in the past 24 hours. And with a large wave of retirement in our future, workforce development has become mission critical for the economic development professional. 4 years ago, I returned home to my hometown of St. Tammany Parish, Louisiana. You guys call those counties, to pursue my career in economic development. Prior to that, I'd spent almost a decade on a college campus as a student, staff member, and national leadership consultant. Workforce development is a natural passion of mine because for me, my work has always been about the people. Who does it impact? Why is it valuable? What does it mean to Susie and to Joe and to John? That passion became a personal ambition upon returning to my hometown, and I wanted to find a way to create a sustainable pathway from education and training to careers right in my own hometown. What I realized 4 years later, though, is that that work, that personal ambition, really is a strategy, a process that you can replicate in your community if you're ready and willing. So first and foremost, we have to identify the problem. And this is going to look different for each of us. So I challenge you to really look at what are the challenges in your business community? What have you heard through your business retention and expansion visits? What are some barriers to members of your workforce? Then take a deeper look at the data. What's the average age of your workforce? What's their education attainment level? What industries are reaching points of saturation? And what's the average commute time for your workers? In St. Tammany, when we took a look at our data, we saw that our problem was people. We needed a pipeline of education and training to careers right in our community. Simultaneously, data showed that we had an incredible volume of maritime companies in our community and in our region. But we didn't have a dedicated training program for that industry sector. My community chose to approach this problem on two different fronts: the Workforce Development Series and a maritime consortium created by the North Shore Technical Community College, our local community college. So when I first approached my CEO, Brenda Burtis, about the idea of a Workforce Development Series, I was the newest employee in our office. I was the youngest employee in our office. I was a recent first-generation college graduate, and this was my very first proposal in this organization. So needless to say, the odds were not stacking up in my favor. Well, the first question Brenda asked me was, well, Ashley, how much is this going to cost the organization? I see a lot of giggles and smiles. That is usually the first question, right? And I assured her very quickly that the only thing it would cost the organization was my staff time and my sweat equity. Now, she didn't exactly greenlight the project, but she definitely didn't red light it. So I very quickly thanked her for the yellow light, and in 2014, I launched our Workforce Development Series. Something fun about our presentation is these are real pictures from our Workforce Development Series in our office. So these are real people that we work with day in and day out. So I mentioned we tackled this challenge on two fronts, but here's the difference of the way we tackled it. North Shore Technical Community College joined us at our Workforce Development Series, and I sat as our organization's representative on the North Shore Technical Community College Maritime Consortium. In both cases, we brought individuals to a common table to talk about the specific problem that we had identified. Because the fact of the matter is, if you've got a people problem, then you really need a people solution. And that's where your role really kicks off as the facilitator of this initiative. It's up to you to find the people who are going to put this problem into action to create a solution that's valuable for you and your community. Take a look around at your current stakeholders, your current partners, people who are already working on this initiative or similar initiatives. Then look a layer deeper. Who are the people who are working on those initiatives? By this point, you might be asking yourself, well, what the heck is a doer? Who's a doer? Well, doers are individuals. They're not organizations. These are people who are curious, who like new tools, embrace new technologies. They're open-minded. They really like to listen, but they know when to speak up. And usually when they speak up, people tend to listen to them and what they have to say. Look for rising professionals with new ideas. Look for retiring professionals who know exactly what your community's been through, what works, what doesn't work. Look for colleagues and partners who have access to new and different technologies that you and your organization don't have access to. Look for concerned citizens. Look for engaged business leaders. Look for people who are really great storytellers, but who aren't afraid to share constructive criticism. Now it's time to talk about two of my favorite doers, and I'm actually pictured with both of them at our conference room table, Dr. William Wainwright and Dr. Tina Tinney, the Chancellor and Vice Chancellor of North Shore Technical Community College, respectfully. These are two of the most dynamic and innovative educators I have ever had the pleasure to work with. Every single vision that they have for education in our community comes with a long laundry list of action items to make that vision a reality. But what makes these individuals so different is that Dr. Wainwright and Dr. Tinney consistently follow up and follow through. And that's what makes them so dynamic. In this coalition and in this partnership, it wasn't just the three of us. We had to look further and look deeper. The Louisiana Workforce Commission plays a key and critical role. Our K-12 education partners. Obviously, North Shore Technical Community College, but we also invited other two-year community and technical education providers within our region to join our table. This included our university partners and business and industry. It is the inclusion of business and industry that makes this strategy, this process, so effective. In regards to that Maritime Consortium, we brought our business and industry partners to the table. These were the men and women who work in our maritime companies day in and day out. In some cases, it was the fleet manager. Other cases, it was the training manager, so on and so forth. But these were the men and women who really knew what they needed, what their biggest challenges are, and so we brought them to the table. Now, being an energy, oil, and gas state, a lot of these companies are legacy industries, and many of them don't talk. And there may be long-term generational reasons for why they have not talked. But in this instance, because their need was so great, they came to the table together to talk about the identified problem in order to find a solution, all around a common table. And your job as the facilitator is really to create that table. And it may be creating a table where one does not yet exist. This type of peer-to-peer environment may not be something that's already happening in your community. And it really falls to you to create that environment, to create that ecosystem of worker bees. So, like any good host, you want to extend a warm and hospitable personal invitation to join you at this table. How many of you guys, since you've been at this conference, probably already have 5 or so meeting requests sitting in your inbox, but you don't have all of your calendars to look at to confirm or deny those meetings right now? Y'all, we are busy, busy people, and so is everybody else. And so it takes that personal invitation to say, hi, I would really love for you to come join me at this event. Would you be able to be there? When someone's looking at you face to face, it's a lot harder to decline the invite, right? So invite them personally and one-on-one. Share with them what their individual value is. Sir, I need you at the table because you are an expert in this industry and you know better about this topic than anyone else. Will you please join us? Well, now, you've made them feel really special and really appreciated. You've already got that buy-in a little bit to join you at your table. But here's the key. The people who actually want to do the work, your real doers, your action-oriented, get things done, cross things off the list people, they don't need to be wined and dined, y'all. Serve them coffee and water. They have places to go, they have people to see, they want to be here, they want to contribute, and they want to move on. Serve them coffee and water. Because this whole strategy requires $0, zero publicity, and zero ego. You got to be able to let it go and really listen to what your partners are saying. So now that you've sent out that invitation and you kind of know what's what, let's talk a little bit about the programming and what happens at the event. In our case, the Workforce Development Series is a sector-specific session. We chose it that way because we really wanted to make sure that we could take a deep dive on the data and on the information and not just skim the surface. For us, some of our sessions have included maritime, manufacturing, distribution and logistics, healthcare, and so on and so forth. And this should be reflective of what sectors are seen in your community. What are your real economic drivers? So now that you've invited your guests, now you know what your program looks like. Now everyone's kind of entering your conference room. Again, this is our conference room. We decided to host these events at our office because we wanted them to feel really comfortable and to learn more about what our role can be as an EDO. And Chris mentioned this earlier, that it's really about showing people what we do, who we are. And this was one way that we were able to extend that invitation. Now, even though this is being hosted at your office, and you are the facilitator, it's incredibly important that you do not sit at the head of the table in your own conference room. You're not the guest of honor. And in this situation, you're not the boss, but you are the facilitator. And it's a great opportunity to sit just to the right of center. So now that you've extended the invitation, you know where you're sitting, you want to make sure that you have more than enough chairs for all of your guests to participate at the table. This also generates buy-in. How many of you guys have been to a meeting where you've had to take a seat way, way, way in the back, but you had something that you really wanted to say, and you had your hand raised, and you're kind of coughing and doing this and that, trying to get someone's attention, and 20 minutes later, you still haven't been able to make your point because you weren't close enough to the action? You don't want this to happen in your room. You want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to participate. But please don't get discouraged if the attendance numbers aren't exactly what you wanted. Sometimes our room has been really packed, like you've seen in these pictures. Other times, there's 4 or 5 people. But in the moments where it's 4 to 5 people, those have been some of my favorite sessions because I learn the most. Because folks who might not normally stand up and share their insights in a larger group, they feel way more comfortable in that smaller setting. And we're really able to get to know each other and really connect on the topic at hand. So don't be discouraged by those numbers at all. You want to make sure that you have another one of your key stakeholders introduce themselves first, and have everyone in the room introduce yourself last. You want to know who's in the room, and you want all of your participants to be really comfortable to call individuals out by name, in a very positive way, of course. But you also want them to build relationships amongst themselves. Who knows, their organizations may have done business together in the past, but you guys haven't had the opportunity to connect as individuals. After introductions, you're going to want to hear from a subject matter expert. This is someone who's kind of going to kick off the dialogue with about a 20-minute presentation of data, trends, current information, and other coalition work that's happening. Jennifer Barnett of the Louisiana Workforce Commission is a common facilitator in our workforce development series. She usually presents an annual workforce overview for our office that gives us the data and trends and the what's happening now in our community and kind of that 18-month window of what's coming down the pipeline. We also kindly refer to her as the data stylist, because if you need numbers and you need them quick and you need them specific, she is your gal, and she is a lifesaver to me and to our office. But by her sharing that wealth of knowledge, we're able to really focus on what really matters. Because if you've got a room of doers, it's not just enough to brag about past accomplishments. Small talk isn't really revving their engines. It's about connecting and collaborating. It's about engaging in real dialogue and real conversation that results in actions to move you forward and closer to getting to your real solution. And again, your role as a facilitator is to help foster that. Be vulnerable. Be authentic. Listen. Listen way more than you're talking. But encourage others to do the same. Generate real buy-in. Ask people to share their expertise. And make sure that you're thinking critically and being critical. And I know that might sound a little harsh, but if you're bringing these experts to the table and you're bringing these doers here, you want their real, honest feedback, not a really kind and fluffy answer. But don't get your feelings hurt when you get that very honest, very candid feedback, but know that it's all part of the process of moving your coalition closer to your solution. One of my favorite ways that we've been able to really connect and collaborate in St. Tammany is our Future Focus Camp. We work directly with our K-12 partners through our career and technical curriculum coordinators at our parish school board. We don't work with the school board elected officials, and we don't work with the superintendent, but these group of dynamic educators and their curriculum partners. So here you can see some of our talented career and technical educators pictured at some of our local business and industry. During the summer, so this is summertime, teachers are out of school. This is a volunteer basis that they come for 2 days, and we bring them to our business and industry partners. Y'all, our business and industry partners roll out the red carpet for these teachers because they know their business is only as good as their employees, and these men and women are teaching their future employees. And you all know in terms of relocation costs, it's a heck of a lot easier to employ someone from right there in your community than to have to relocate from someone across the country. So in these meetings, they're able to hear directly from the local business and industry leaders about what they're looking for in their talent, what skill sets they really need their individuals to come in the door already knowing. This conversation is ranging from what type of computer programs they need to be comfortable with to soft skills like showing up on time, wearing the appropriate uniform, and how to pick up a telephone and answer the phone appropriately, and around and around and around. But our teachers are able to bring all of this information, implement it into their curriculum for the fall semester, and send it right on to their students. It's also a great brand awareness opportunity because how many of you actually knew what the industries were in your hometown while you were in high school? I didn't, and I now work in my hometown. It was a whole different learning opportunity, and so we have to expose these students to those opportunities. And it's also giving us an opportunity to dig deeper at the data and what really matters. Because your doers are looking to do things, and they have to be able to commit to real results. We want to put everything we've learned into action. So what did we learn in St. Tammany? Well, we learned that the average welder was nearing retirement, challenging us to educate an entire new generation to the industry and the occupation. We also learned that information technology cannot merely be viewed as a sector in our community, but rather is a compilation of core competencies that impact all of our businesses in our community. So once you guys have heard from your speaker, you've shared around the table, now it's time to talk about what are we going to do and putting your action items together. Make sure that you are assigning tasks to individuals. That personal accountability of, oh, I'm supposed to run that report when I get back to the office and email that out to everyone, or I'll contact that person and follow up and invite them to the next meeting, whatever it may be. But you also want to follow up via email. You're the person who invited them. You're the person who scheduled the meeting. It's your turn to follow up and make sure that there is a next step. You're kind of the guardian of that. And so in that instance, I like to actually draft my email beforehand. So I draft my email before the meeting with all of my content, any information or data pieces that I may want to attach and send out to the group. Immediately after the meeting, I go back to my office, add in everyone's contact information, any salient points, any action items that we've assigned to folks, and send it out quickly. Because I don't want people to forget our conversation. And my hope is that they've really enjoyed themselves while they were in our room. They're feeling jazzed and charged up about what we've talked about, and they feel like good things are coming and it's on the horizon. And I want them to get that email while they're still experiencing that feeling. And I also want to be able to thank them. Again, we all know that commitment that being out of the office means. So I want to thank them for their time and remind them how valuable they are as individuals to this initiative. So here's some results in action. So our Maritime Consortium met, and we still continue to meet, actually. That initiative was launched in 2014. But in 2016, the Department of Education in the state of Louisiana approved the Maritime Associates program with 2 tracks, a vessel track and an ROV track. And we are on track, actually, to graduate our first graduate in May of 2018 from this program. George Berkeley, and you can see him, he is in the picture on the right, first row, guy in the blue shirt. George Berkeley is the executive director of the Maritime Pilots Institute. He's been a member of the Maritime Consortium since its inception. George is also a professor of record in the Maritime program at North Shore Technical Community College. And he is the brave soul that volunteered to take a group of students from New Orleans to Dubai on a study abroad program. Not only did this group include North Shore Technical Community College students, but it also included Sam Howard, who is a dual-enrolled high school student at one of our local public high schools. For some of the students you see pictured, this was their very first time on an airplane. Now, if that is not a real, tangible result, I don't really know what is. And so after your sessions, after you're back in your office, you really need to think about what are the results? What are we working towards? Who is missing from our conversation? Is there an organization that wasn't represented, but they really need to be at the table? And then you need to follow up and reach out to those individuals and invite them again. And then you have to look towards the next problem, because guys, there's always going to be a next problem. So you must assemble the next group around the next table. So 4 years into this, and 4 years into this, this is still really, really tough. It is really challenging. It requires a lot of hard work, a lot of time, and a lot of dedication. But what makes all of this worth it for me really does boil down to the people. And the people that I've been able to introduce you guys to today, those are my partners in coalition. And those real relationships and our true partnership has given me the opportunity to see our results in action via the students. Whether it be speaking at Career Day about an overarching look at workforce development and job opportunities in our community, or attending a sunrise breakfast honoring our scholarship recipients at North Shore Technical Community College. There is nothing more rewarding than seeing our business and industry partners investing in our students who've made a choice to advance their career right here at home in St. Tammany, who are looking for employment right there at home in our community. And knowing that them and their families will flourish is what drives me. And you can experience that too. Again, it's not easy, but it's totally worth it. But if not you, if not now, join somebody else's table and get to work if you're ready and willing to do the work. Because in order to find the doers, you have to be the doer. Thank you.
All right, Ashley, thank you very much. I'm trying to imagine Sam Howard coming home and saying, "Mom, I have this permission slip. We have a field trip to Dubai next week." And anyway, interesting, great presentation, lots of great advice. Thank you, Ashley. So we're going to bring back Aaron Salomon as he tunes up here. Bring out a microphone for him as well. He's going to play one other song for you. As we're getting him set up, I do want to let you all know that tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. there is an IEDC fun run, and I hope you'll join us for that. This is the first year that we're actually offering certification points for being in the run, so you really all should show up. Okay, that's not true. So, anyway, Aaron, you all set? Okay. Aaron Salomon, round two.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to do a song here. This song was written by Chet Powers. It's called Get Together. And Chet Powers was a singer-songwriter in San Francisco. And this is one of his most popular songs when he was doing the rounds as a singer-songwriter. And then he got busted for possession of marijuana. And in his when he was trying to work up his defense, when he went to court, he sold the publishing rights on this song. It didn't work, though. He ended up still going to Folsom Prison. But the song went on to be recorded by the Kingston Trio first. And then eventually it got recorded by We Five and the Dave Clark Five and Jefferson Airplane. And then it was recorded by a band called the Youngbloods. And that's my favorite version of this song. And I'm going to stop talking now and see if I can nail the lick. Love is but a song to sing. Fear's the way we die. You can make the mountains ring or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, you may not know why. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Notice the lyrics of the chorus happen to be on the slides up there. I wonder who put that there. For all of those who are thinking, geez, I'd like to sing along, but just don't know the words. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Some may come and some may go. We will surely pass. When the one who left us here returns for us at last, we are but a moment's sunlight fading in the grass. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. If you hear this song I sing, you will understand. Listen. The key to locking love and fear you hold within your hand. Just one key unlocks them both. It's there at your command. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. When I was talking to Andy Levine about which songs to do, he recommended this one, and I thought it was a great choice. It's a very universal song. And then he said, "Do you think we'll be able to get the people singing?" And I said, at a conference where nobody knows anybody and they're all sitting there together, he said, "No, that's not going to happen." I said, "Well, what if we put the lyrics up on?" And I said, "Well, you put the lyrics up." "No, they're going to be too shy." 1, 2, 3. Come on, people now, smile on your brother. Everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Not bad. You know, later on when you're sitting in Quinn's Steakhouse and somebody walks up to you and says, "You know what, you're buying the round because I saw you were on your phone the whole time and you weren't singing." You could say, "Yes, I did sing. I sang on the very last chorus and I gave it everything I had." Well, this is the moment you've been waiting for. It's the very last chorus. 1, 2, 3. Come on, people now. Right now, right now. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Awesome. Allison Larson just said to me, "Well, we know what's on your playlist, Andy." So anyway, thank you, Aaron. Really appreciate you being here today. So thank you so much. All right, we're in the home stretch here. Two more speakers. So I'm going to introduce to you Brian Buggy. Brian is the director of the Vancouver Economic Commission from Vancouver, British Columbia. Now, the title that we have in front of you has been sanitized a little bit. If Vancouver is an island of green, we are in big trouble. Big trouble was a different word. But anyway, I'm going to let Brian come up and explain that. So come on up. Thank you, Brian.
Hi. Do I get a clicker? Sorry about that. Good. Okay, any Canadians here? Who's from the West Coast? Vancouver? Okay, so all you Torontonians who come to Vancouver every year to do this and this, because you can't do it in Toronto. See, in BC, this is where I grew up. I grew up halfway between Calgary and Vancouver. And like many British Columbians, the outdoor recreation and the wonderful environment out there has really been baked into our DNA. So it's something that's actually become incredibly important to us in the West Coast. And we think in economic development on the West Coast now that people really pay attention to the environment. It's become a competitive advantage. So this is a beautiful shot about 90 minutes from where I grew up. It's in a national park. I think it's either Glacier National Park or Banff National Park. And this is a place that my dad used to take me all the time. And I wanted to use this as a symbolism. That's a green island. And for many, it's a beautiful photo, but it's also a green island surrounded by lots of gray rock. So we don't want to remain just a green island. This is also a beautiful forest, maybe, in BC. This is actually dead pine trees. You see, for the last 10, 15 years now, maybe since the late 90s, we've had a problem with the pine beetle. The mountain pine beetle epidemic has just been voracious. It's actually killing all of our pine wood. You see, the winters are getting warmer. And because the winters are getting warmer, we can no longer sustain that really cold sub-zero temperatures to kill off that pest every winter. So it's been allowed to spread and spread and spread. Now 58% of our commercially viable pine has been killed off. And that's been devastating for the BC forestry industry. In fact, 752 million cubic meters of BC wood just gone. And to translate that, that's 18.3 million hectares, or a few Americans in the audience, 73,000 square miles in land mass. That's 20% of our province, but it's a big province. We're 35% larger than Texas. So that's equal to or greater than the state of Washington, the state of Missouri, state of North Dakota, even larger than Oklahoma. So imagine driving on that interstate for hours and hours and see nothing but dead forest. Just like this one. That aerial photo is shocking, but even more shocking is the economic impact that this has had to our forestry industry. $57 billion just in the industry, not counting the multiplier effects. And now, 10 years later, 2017, the wildfire season has been brutal. So imagine all of that dead pine drying up and rotting, falling to the forest floor, and becoming some of the worst fuel for the fire that you could imagine. 1,200 fires, more than 5,000 square miles gone. That's better. That's larger than the entire metropolitan area of Los Angeles. And of course, the impact on humans has been devastating too. More than 50,000 people evacuated across towns all over the interior British Columbia. We usually spend about $61 million in fire suppression, but this year, just in 4 months, $600 million spent just fighting fires, and it's not even over yet. And look at Vancouver. When the smoke blows the wrong way, and that's a lot of smoke, that's a lot of pollution, that's a lot of greenhouse gases. We've had many days now where Vancouver, one of the greenest cities in the world, now has air quality worse than Beijing. So $3 billion impact to our economy just in 4 short months. And of course, you know, this is what we've got. This is not good. This is, you know, we've been told by the the Ministry of Forests that the fire season has been extended 1 to 2 days every year since 1980. And we're forecasting temperature increases by 2050 to be 2 to 3 degrees warmer in the summertime than it is right now. So this is the face of climate change. And if this is the new normal, this is really unacceptable. This is not what we should be standing for. So, you know, if we're going to solve this, it's going to take unprecedented collaboration with an unprecedented sense of urgency. And I think it starts with cities. And, you know, beautifully, this is where economic developers can help. Because economic developers, I believe, are city builders. And cities are where the economic engines are. It's where the wealth is created. It's where the industry is. It's home to industry and commerce. It's where 82% of your population lives now in both Canada and the US. So it's, you know, cities are networks. Cities are not just government. Cities are made up of all kinds of actors, from business leaders and political leaders, religious groups, community builders, academia, scientists, and so on. And who's at the middle of it? Who's at the conduit of these networks? You are, the economic developers. See, I believe you're uniquely positioned in your communities and every city across the country to be connected to people that can make a difference. You're the conveners, you're the facilitators. Your local networks are extraordinary, and you've got global networks as well. You're positioned in between the public sector and the private sector. You know what the city's objectives are. You know what the private sector has capacity to help. So this is really our opportunity to revolutionize our practice of economic development, to really think about different approaches and ask ourselves, what are we measuring and why? What are we focused on and why? And is there anything more important than fighting the perils of climate change? And is there a role that economic developers in every city can play to make that happen? So to not pivot and change our practice of economic development, I say, is irresponsible. This is something we must do. As a profession, we need to declare this as our moral imperative. And let's take Vancouver. In Vancouver, we're doing it right now. For the last 10 years, we've been growing our GDP by 26% and lowering our greenhouse gases by more than 15%. In fact, 20% on a per capita basis. And look at our green jobs growth. 49% increase in green jobs since 2010. At 7.8% growth just over the last 3 years in all kinds of jobs like clean tech and green buildings and local food and materials management. So this has been a tremendous boom to the city of Vancouver. You see, it's really impacted our brand. Our brand experts like Brand Finance out of London have told us that our clean and healthy image, our brand is really attracting talent now. They say it's $31.7 billion. That's number 26 in the world for a city brand. Now, that's not bad for a city of only 2.4 million people, a tiny little city by global standards. So these healthy and clean environments are attracting talent, and of course now we're noticing that companies are chasing the talent. They're coming to Vancouver because highly skilled talent is choosing green. So where did it start? It really started in 2008. So the Mayor Gregor Robertson, ran on a platform of both the environment and the economy. And he won that election. He's won many since then. And in 2009, he declared Vancouver will be the greenest city by 2020. So we got to work, and we, city staff and the Vancouver Economic Commission consulted with all kinds of people across the city, and we created this greenest city framework of zero carbon and zero waste and healthy ecosystems. And we've got 10 goal areas across those 3 themes, and the green economy rips right across all of them. It doesn't matter what you're focusing on, it's a benefit to our economy. And we had a green team. We don't have one token sustainability officer. We've got an entire team dedicated to green economic development and sustainability, focusing on clean tech clusters and focusing on engaging businesses and lowering their environmental footprint. And obviously, we're having fun doing it. And they're passionate. They love doing this kind of work. So we have two approaches. One of them is to support innovation and innovators. And this is critical. So these are a lot of startups. We help companies through the incubation and acceleration stage, and we provide all kinds of support in helping them accelerate through the commercialization of their business, including demonstration and pilot tests. We even help them with market access, including markets in China and California and Northern Europe. In fact, in just one program, our Green and Digital Demonstration Program, we've had 89 companies apply just to pilot test and demonstrate their solutions on city-owned assets and municipal infrastructure. It's wildly successful. The second approach is around engaging all of our businesses, not just our clean tech entrepreneurs, but every sector. And we have all kinds of workshops, and we have a digital platform as well, so that companies can come to get resources and coaching and learn how to lower their environmental footprint, how to increase their profit, and how to grow their business in a corporate, socially responsible way. And we call that program Thriving Vancouver. Business is good in Vancouver. Going green is good for business. So there's 4 lessons that we've learned by doing this for the past 6 or 7 years. I want to share those with you very quickly. Number 1, of course, leadership matters. In this case, in Vancouver, it came from City Hall. So there's a huge amount of compliments to the City Council and the Mayor, of course, for having the guts to take a stand and increase all kinds of standards in terms of regulation at City Hall. But leadership can come from anywhere. The second one is engagement matters. We've engaged more than 35,000 citizens and thousands of small businesses, subject matter experts of all kinds, and we've had a tremendous success in this. It's probably the largest engagement that we've ever had in Vancouver. And people are really passionate about this stuff. In our culture in Vancouver, on the West Coast, it seems that we can't be green enough. As soon as we set a new standard or accomplish something else, they're already pushing us for more because of that level of engagement. And of course, regulation matters. That's council chambers in the city of Vancouver passing another bylaw, probably the zero emissions bylaw this time. And what we say in Vancouver is that if you regulate, entrepreneurs in the business community will innovate. So regulation stimulates innovation. So for all of you policy wonks out there, don't be afraid. Go ahead and regulate. The business community will respond. They'll come back with new solutions, new innovations, and new business models. And finally, data matters. Data really matters. So in your own journey, don't forget to measure. Don't forget to first establish your baseline and then measure regularly and report out. And as you're reporting out, you'll gain more experience. You'll see your metrics improving. And as they improve, the business community is going to start to get behind you. They're going to want to be a part of this winning journey as they see how it impacts profit, how it's engaging the entire business community. So here we are in 2017, and we're on a new journey now. We're going to hit our 2020 targets. There's no question about that. And at the Economic Commission, that means more than doubling the number of green jobs and more than doubling the number of businesses engaged in greening their operations. But we're up to something new now, and that's going 100% renewable. 100% renewable energy across this city, not just operations, but the entire community, all citizens. Today we're at 31%. We've got a long ways to go, but as we drill down, we can see there's really 2 verticals where we can make an impact. And one of them is in the built environment, and that's all the buildings and construction. And the second one, of course, is in transportation. Just between those 2 sectors, that's 93% of our greenhouse gases. So we see this journey, this part, as big as an economic opportunity, as big as the post-World War II construction boom. So we're pretty excited about this. Okay, so back to that green island. If Vancouver remains a green island pursuing this aggressive sustainable economic development policy and programs, then we're all fucked. We really are. Because at the end of the day, we're sharing the same airshed. We can't just be a green island. We really all need to be doing this. So that's my invitation to you, is to join us in this journey. So what can we do now? I assert that the IEDC should take a serious look at the curriculum that it's delivering today. I think the curriculum needs to change. I think we need to make sustainability and the environment mandatory courses inside of your curriculum. If we know that the young professionals coming up through the profession of economic development are thinking of the environment and they're moving forward on resiliency and other things that impact sustainability, then we're headed in the right track. But it just really needs to be mandatory. It gives all of us in the community a peace of mind. Secondly, it's 2017. Most cities have a climate action plan by now. But are you aligned? Is your economic development department working in unison with it or against it? In Vancouver, we've been aligned with our Green City Action Plan since 2010. And of course, our economy, our GDP is at 4.1%. Our unemployment is hovering around 5%. We've got the strongest economy in all of Canada. We might have the strongest local economy in the G7, so don't tell me that going green isn't good for business. And finally, let's make it a race, not a journey. Time is urgent. We do compare ourselves to other cities. We look at Copenhagen for inspiration and Amsterdam, and we also have a lot of fun with Portland. And if we make it a competition, then it makes it more fun, and it makes it more urgent as well. Okay, so that's my last slide. We really must do it. I say it's our moral imperative as economic developers. And don't rip yourself off. You do have influence. You are at the center of the community. We must do this. We can do this. Thank you very much.
We're in the home stretch, people. Our final speaker. So you're going to hear from Gilberto Salinas. He's from Brownsville, Texas. He's the Interim Economic Development Director there. Gil's presentation is candidly a little bit more personal than some of the other presentations, all that have been excellent so far. His topic is, how in the world did I become an economic developer from taco vendor to negotiating with Elon Musk? So give a round of applause to Gil and warm welcome.
Yo vine a este país para darles a ti y a tu hermana una oportunidad. Aprovecha esa oportunidad y nunca seas complacente. So, this is going to be kind of like a Quentin Tarantino film. Things are not going to be in chronological order, but at the end, everything's going to tie in. So I get the phone call. Gilberto, we just finished touring a facility in Southern California, and they're building rockets, and they're launching them into space. And it's very interesting what they're doing there, and one of the things that they're going to look at doing is building an actual launch site, launch rockets over the ocean, and they're looking at 4 different states, and Texas actually happens to be one of them. And Brownsville has been mentioned. Brownsville's my community. So they proceed to kind of fill me in a little bit more on it, and then he says the name of the company is SpaceX, that's short for Space Exploration Technologies, and see what you can do with it. So I kind of pause, thinking about it, scratch my head. Then I turn to my wife, and I tell her, you know, I just got a call from the governor's office, and they said that they've got this company, so on and so forth, and seems very interesting. I mean, we might actually have a shot at it. To which she turns around, very stern, and says, that's fantastic, that's fine and dandy, but right now, there's 50 kids inside that place waiting for your son's birthday party. I was in the parking lot of Chuck E. Cheese, and my 3 boys were in the truck, and they were just going nuts, right? So That's why I remember the date. It was March 5th, 2011, one of my boys' birthday parties. So the next day, I'm already on the phone. I'm on a conference call with their internal site selection team. And the lady that was heading it up, she was actually a Texas native. So she starts talking a little bit about the actual project, what it all entails, and mentions that, hey, look, Boca Chica Beach is of interest to what we're trying to do. Of course, this was one in a gazillion sites that they were looking at. The other ones were Florida, Puerto Rico, and Georgia. And the reason this was interesting is because, as you can see, Brownsville, Texas is what I like to say at the bottom of the earth. We're in the southernmost tip of the state of Texas, but not only that, we're also a little further south than Miami, Florida. So any further south for us, and you're either in Mexico or in the ocean. So from there, you can actually, at the beach, which is in the outskirts of Brownsville, an undeveloped beach, you can launch from there across the Gulf of Mexico, shoot that gap between the southern tip of Florida, basically the Florida Keys and Cuba, and then over the Atlantic Ocean. And she proceeds to say, it's got a very intriguing geographic position. Okay, so 2 weeks later, I'm already boarding the plane there in Brownsville, and I've got my notes on the actual project. I'm reading up on the company, our due diligence, learning a little bit about this person that's behind this particular company. Keep in mind this is 2011. And so we arrive. We arrive at their headquarters in Hawthorne, California at SpaceX. It's a huge hangar-like facility. And coincidentally, it was also, or ironically, it was a former Howard Hughes aircraft manufacturing facility where they're now operating from. And I still remember walking in, from the corner of my eye, I saw at the very far end there was another building, and it said Tesla Motors. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I guess they also build cars, right? So we walk in, we're greeted, and then we're at the table. We're at the table. It's me and a small delegation from my community, and then Elon Musk walks in, and he actually sits right next to me. So we start talking about the project. He walks us through the whole process. He starts talking a little bit about rocket science, the physics behind launching an actual rocket into space, what it all entails. And then he starts touching on equatorial launches. So the reason our part of the world was very interesting is because an equatorial launch is basically, and this is in his words, the further south you are, or the closer you are to the equator, which would be us, the less fuel and a heavier payload you can take into space because you're using the Earth's gravitational or Earth's rotational speed. It's kind of like a slingshot. You get that rocket into space a little faster. So that was intriguing about our actual position. So what do we do as economic developers? When we're meeting with prospects, whether it's the smallest homegrown business to being in Manhattan, New York, meeting with Fortune 500 companies, C-level executives, we're already analyzing the project. So how much time is this going to take? Priority, because we're all busy, right? We've got this project now, and where does it rank with all the other projects that we have? Time, how much time is it going to take? And then you start talking, talking yourself into resources. Well, aside from incentives, what else are we going to be putting into it? Are we going to be pulling staff into this particular project and what have you? So the economic developer, me, no different than you all, is already processing this information. And at the same time, because this is rocket science and we've never really been exposed to this, Brownsville, Texas, very traditional manufacturing logistics community on the border, also by the sea. How am I going to convince my leadership back in my community, go back and tell them, hey, we should invest in this company that has had 2 failed launches, but they've just successfully launched 1 rocket. Bet on them to build a rocket factory in our backyard. Mind you that we know nothing about rocket science. How am I going to package that back to our community leadership? So as we're there in the boardroom, he kind of pauses, and now he's got our attention. And then he asks, do you know why I'm doing this? I'm going to circle back to this here in a little while. So now I'm going to take you to another part of my life. Now it's the 1990s. I'm at the University of Texas at Austin. And welcome horns. And so it's 5:30 in the morning, and I'm in the dorm, and while everybody's still asleep or still crawling in from the night before, I already have an assembly line of food ingredients spread out through the kitchen. So I've got tortillas over here, I've got ham and egg in one frying pan, chorizo and egg in the other pan, vegetables over here, spices, salt, pepper, and then the foil paper, and then a little cooler. So I'm going 100 miles an hour. It takes me about 30 to 40 minutes of prep time to get everything ready. And then another, the actual cooking part's just like 15 minutes, it's not that long. And then another 20 to 25 minutes to package everything and then put it inside the cooler. So then I board the UT shuttle bus, backpack in one arm and then a little cooler on the other. I did this for several years. Actually, I did this for 5 years. I was on the 5-year plan. And so I get to the campus. So I stop at the engineering building and I drop off a batch of tacos there, which by the way, I think in Canada you all call them burritos. So these are, in Texas we call them tacos. So I drop them off at the engineering building, and I make my way to the communications building, drop off another batch. And then I get to the liberal arts building, which their special request was veggie tacos. That's why I had the vegetables there. Then I'm at the telephone services department, which is where I had a work study, a job there. So it's already 9 o'clock. I'm at my desk. I drop off a batch, and I'm already working away. In the afternoon, I was then attending classes, and then I had a night job as well. So what does this have to do with economic development? Well, I'm here to tell you that it's got everything to do with economic development, from the marketing to the recruitment to the incentives. Had to give out some samples in order to build a customer base, closing the deal. But I'm here to tell you that the one thing, the one skill set that I learned that I'm still using today is building relationships. And at the root of it all, economic development is all about relationship building. And that's the one thing that selling tacos taught me, is that recurring business that I got from all those relationships. But look, economic development is about the money. Whether it's in the form of jobs coming into your community, we're all asked, how many jobs are you bringing in every year? Capital investment, how are you expanding the tax base for your city? Are you contributing to your tax coffers? So basically, bottom line, it's about the money. And when I was in college, it was exactly about that. I was selling tacos to make money. And I was selling 100 tacos a day at about $1 to $1.50 each. And my overhead was no more than $10. So as you can imagine, in the 1990s, that money was just pouring in. I mean, it was coming. I got to a point where if I wanted to, I could expand the business, hire some people, but I actually needed to study, right? So I've just explained the what. The what were the tacos. The how was selling them to make money. But the why was in the 1990s, the average student was incurring between $40,000 to $50,000 in student debt. It's significantly more now. My why was that tacos put me through college. Now I'm going to go back to the 1970s. I'm 4 years old. And I'm not going to harp on this one too much because it is a sensitive topic, and in economic development, we tend to stay away from certain topics. So my parents are from a little ejido. Ejido is a village in northeast Mexico, just on the other side of the Texas-Mexico border. And that part of Mexico has a huge Spanish, Jewish, Arab influence, hence, that's how I got my looks. Don't stand next to me at the airport. Yeah. So, all right, guys. So my parents grew up no different than the majority of children around the world outside of the United States, dreaming about America, the land of the free, where dreams come true. And their dreams did come true. They made it to America. I'm not going to tell you how. Current administration wouldn't, well, I'm just not going to tell you how, but they got to America. And this is what it looked like. The land of the free filled with crops ready to be picked. But I'm here to tell you that's fine. I mean, that's okay. This is what they did, and this is what they wanted to do. This was their ticket to get to America. And they picked those crops for, for many, many years. But really for them, that was an opportunity, and they took full advantage of that particular opportunity that was presented to them. And really, the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's really the story of me. It's part of my DNA, it's part of my fabric, and that's how I became an economic developer. We're coming back to 2011. we're at the headquarters with Elon Musk, and he has asked us the questions on the table. Do you know why I'm doing this? And we're there and kind of take a step back, and we're like, well, you know, there's money to be made in building rockets and launching them into space. It's kind of like a logistics company, right? Except you're going into space. What we didn't realize is we were explaining the what. The what were the rockets. The how was launching them and making money. But that was not the why. Then he proceeds, we can no longer sustain humanity on this planet. So I'm like, this is 2011. I'm going to colonize Mars. So at this point in time, I'm thinking, I've already just bypassed everything. And I'm thinking, I'm just going to get fired when I get back to Brownsville, Texas, and I tell them, let's invest in a company that's had 2 failed launches. They've just successfully launched 1 rocket into space. They've got 2 launch facilities, but they really want to build this one over here in our backyard. And let's use some of those tax dollars to support this particular company. And by the way, he's going to save humanity and colonize Mars. So why were we thinking what we were thinking back then? What was happening back then? So in 2011, anything having to do with space still had to go through NASA. The space shuttle was still flying in 2011. The economic downturn. We were still shell-shocked from the economic downturn. We had no idea how it happened or how we got ourselves into it. We did not know whether we were still in a downward spiral, whether we hit rock bottom, or whether we're already climbing our way out of the economic downturn. And Occupy Wall Street, it was about to happen. Right after that meeting, that's when it happened. And when it came to innovation, to the latest gadgets, and to world-changing ideas, he's the one that we were relying on. We were on the edges of our seat, waiting for him to tell us what was the next best thing that was going to change the world. In 2011, nobody was talking about deep space exploration. Nobody was talking about artificial intelligence. And nobody was talking about autonomous cars. We've come a long way since. And then he proceeds to say, in addition to the why, he starts communicating his vision. And that's something that we did not realize. When we were there, we were witnessing one of the greatest innovators of our time, one of the greatest entrepreneurs right now, communicating to us his vision as to what it is that he was doing. Having the foresight back then when nobody was talking about Mars, and NASA probably was talking about it but not making it public. Perhaps it was on the back burner. And then he proceeds to say, complacency is a nemesis of progress. And at that moment when he said that, it took me back to when I was getting ready to enter kindergarten, and I'm there with my sister playing in the rich, black, fertile soil of Adrian, Michigan, and my dad, swiping the sweat from his forehead, and he says, I came to this country to provide you and your sister an opportunity. Take advantage of that opportunity and don't ever be complacent. That's how I opened up the TED Talk this morning. That's how I opened up the conversation. He still does not speak English right now. World's first vertical rocket launch facility is currently under construction at my Boca Chica Beach in my community in Brownsville, Texas, by Space Exploration Technologies. Son of Mexican immigrants, once a taco vendor, and successfully, with a team and a community and a region behind it, negotiating a deal of a lifetime with Elon Musk. And if there's one thing I want you all to walk away with today is that one of the greatest innovators of our time right now, and a person with a third-grade education, have something to teach us about economic development. Thank you.
All right. Wow, powerful story, Gil. I'm going to call all of our speakers up to the stage here for a moment. Come on up, guys. I hope you can see how hard they worked and how hard they prepared to do these presentations for you today. It's very hard to come up on stage with nothing around you, nothing but a lavalier microphone and no notes, and walk through this. So come on up front, guys. Please give them a round of applause, along with Aaron as well. Awesome, awesome job. So I hope someone gets a photo. Thank you. If you like this format, please let IEDC know. I think it's good that we experiment, try some different things like this. I see thumbs going up. Thank you all. And again, thank you to the crew in the back that did all the sound and everything. Thank you to Aaron. Thank you to our speakers. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you so much.